Welcome back to my campaign in Gary Grigsby's War in East 2. We are in the week leading up to October 12th, 1941. It is the 17th turn in my campaign, and the rains have finally started to come. I do have a lot of decisions that I need to make this turn that will have lasting impacts on how my winter offensive, or whatever I'm able to throw together, actually occurs. But first, let's take the tour through what my opponent has done across my front lines. Starting in Rostov, my opponent's unwilling to sit still, so he crosses the river, hits a cavalry division routing it, and then runs into the 136th Rifle Division, where he continues to have success and pushes it back. Attempting to follow up these successes, he crosses the river further to the north, where he runs into my 38th Tank Division, which surprisingly hold their ground. The rest of Army Group South approaches my retreating lines, and without having adequate amount of rifle divisions, it's very easy for him to identify two cavalry, thus engaging in combat and splitting me once again in half. His rested units from the capture of Voronezh sweep northward and cut off those two rifle divisions that I was unable to save last week. I expected this. It was the series of attacks that progressed further up towards Tula that I didn't think he'd have the amount of energy for, but he did poke 3 holes through my lines, risking, I guess, Tambov. I'm still feeling like his ultimate goal here is Moscow. And unfortunately, with that goal in mind, he was able to get a nice anchoring point by capturing the city of Tula. From this central point all the way to Leningrad, his forces remain quiet. They're either forming a defensive posture, or they're resting for an offensive that hopefully, at that point in time, I'll have the forces to stop it. But as the 12th dawns for me, this is what I'm looking at. Heavy rains are stretching all the way from the north down to basically Kharkov and Stalino. So air power is not going to be something I'm going to utilize much this turn. In fact, just taking a look at his air losses, I'm very content with his 55. 41 operational losses this past week is something I hope continues. I don't know how to get it to where he's flying his Air Force while I'm not, because I did ground everything but the Black Sea Air Command and the Southern Air Command. But even just digging further into his numbers, his 16 KIA pilots this week is good, but unfortunately it's most likely not the part I need. So 5 fighters, which I'm assuming all of his BF-109s are in that category. That's the core group I need to whittle down and get replaced with green inexperienced crews, because if I'm ever gonna have a dream of having air superiority at any point in this war, it's gonna have to be his elite fighter pilots are no longer partaking in combat. Now, I know talking about gaining air superiority as the Russians in this game while I'm about 100 miles from losing Moscow seems like a far-fetched dream, and it is. It's going to take into 1943 till I see any format of having air combat where I even look like a respectable air force. But it has been modernized. At the same point, I've finally decided to spend this turn shifting assets around. I create the North Caucasus Air Command, and I bolster at least fighters on map from 1800 all the way up over to 2200. So I'm not going to show the air missions that I run, because literally it's just the same air superiority in the Crimean with a naval patrol. So it's very limited in that aspect, but moving towards the ground, things are a little different there. So the first goal for me to achieve this week of the war is to get the Leningrad front re-engaged and to start giving it units again. So I chose the upper wing of my front. Not able to really devote too much to replacing leaders, so I go with the one army group that does have, I guess, the best. It's just mostly 5s across his admin roles and everything. And then I recolor him to blue, and I thus frees up a little bit more space for me to utilize out of this northwestern front. with further movement trying to bring most of the units closer towards Moscow itself. I don't want to give up too much terrain in this area. I say that every week, but yet every week I move back another hex or two. But I just need to find more rifle divisions, and this is where most of them are. So while those units make their slow process of moving down towards Moscow, hex at a time, the other area that has a large concentration of rifle divisions is at Tula itself. This is basically forcing me to retreat. I'm going to take up positions along those fortified units that I built 2 months ago and stretch it out down towards the airfield at Gorlovo. The plan is to have the Bryansk front hold the lines, while the central front gets the priority and the assets to build up for the offensive come December. And this has forced me to make the 13th Army my main mechanized army. So right now it's sitting with 3 tank divisions, 1 brand new, I believe 3 mechanized, and 2 rifle divisions that it's going to slowly build up. And ultimately, it's going to need a new leader.
Right, what's a war hero got to do? Get some lubrication around here.
So all kidding aside, I could not help but to reuse that again. Felt appropriate since he was finally going to make his way back onto the map. I've been waiting for the AI, I guess, to sign him staff cut like it did in the other 3 games I played. But it has not, so I'm going to use him. My luck is they'll pluck him away from me before November even starts. But hopefully I'll get to use him and have some fun with it. Maybe even see some victories. But taking a bigger picture at things, I had to do the retreat here, at least for now. I'm probably going to fall back in that area southeast of Voronezh as well next week, depending on the weather. But I have 70-ish combat value coming from the 3 theater boxes that are right now sitting over encumbered, I guess. So hopefully I'll be able to bring them to key points on this map, or to utilize them in my offensive come when the 500,000 men get released that I'm being told about. So hopefully the Kerch area that I did not really talk about much so far this week holds. The fortress I built there is now under siege. It's got a defensive value of a little under 60, with some more units heading their way. So my hope there is that he did not bring enough men into the Crimea, because my initial defenses were very weak. So hopefully there's an ability to somewhat mimic history and have somewhat of a Kerch Peninsula combat this winter. And other than that, I'm hoping to slowly continue to rebuild.